Well, good morning, good day, super duper wannabe paratrooper. Hey guys, this is George A. Milton, America's Fairy Coach, coming at you once again on Monday for a episode of Milton's Motivational Message. Hey, let me ask a quick question, real quick, there, our hero. When it comes to failure, what are you feeding? Negative thoughts or positive thoughts? Because here's the truth. Most people never stop to think about. Well, your thoughts control you. Everything you do begins with a thought. Think about that. Everything we do begins with a thought. And if we're being honest, most people think negatively when it comes to failure. I did too, right? For many years, man, because that's kind of what I was conditioned to do. Yeah, look, I used to believe that failure meant something was wrong with me. Failing kindergarten, struggling in school, dropping out of multiple colleges. Every failure fed the same thought. I'm just not good enough. Oh, I'm not good enough, right? I mean, how many of you feel that way? Look, and once that thought took root, oh man, it starts controlling your decisions as it did mine. You see, it controls your confidence and eventually it controls your life. But that changed when I learned something critical. When failure happens, and it will, you only have one real choice. How do you respond to that event, right? That's really the issue at hand. You don't control the failure. You don't control the timing of the failure necessarily. You don't control the outcome, but you do control what you feed your mind after it happens. And the thought you give the most attention to, that's the one that becomes your powerful process of acting out or taking charge or making decisions. That's one that becomes powerful, whether positive thinking or negative thinking when it comes to failure. So, when it comes to the negative feeding, right? What do you think most people do? Well, let me help you out. Most people feed thoughts like, I messed up everything, man. I mean, God, dog. I'm not cut out for this. Other people have it figured out. I don't. This proves I'm a failure. And when you feed those thoughts, you don't just feel bad. I mean, you become hesitant, bitter, and stuck, right? That's how failure turns into identity instead of data and information. So you need to make a shift. So here's what changed everything for me. I stopped asking, why did I fail? And started asking, how do I respond? You know, that's when the lights came on. That's when I learned to understand failure, embrace failure, learn from failure, re-engage after the failure, not emotionally, not motivationally, strategically, right? I mean, failure stopped being an enemy and became data. So how do we feed positive thoughts, right? Let's go through a couple of practical steps in terms of how you can actually do that. So when you fail, feed thoughts like these instead of the negative. This failure is information, not a verdict. Oh, you know what? I'm allowed to learn in public. Or my response matters more than the result. Or this moment can make me better if I allow it. That's how you respond in your eyes. Not by pretending failure doesn't hurt, because it does oftentimes, but by refusing to let negative thoughts run the mission. You don't have to do that. I mean, look, I've led soldiers in combat multiple times. I've coached leaders at every level. And I'll tell you this, the strongest leaders aren't the ones who never fail. They're the ones who feed the right thoughts after failure. Because what you feed, you empower. So, what are you empowering? Do you know? Yeah, you know. So, look, feed negative, feed positive. Whichever you feed, that's the one that actually grows. My suggestion, my guidance, feed the positive. So, here's your assignment this week. The next time you fail, and it will, you will, check what you're feeding. What are your thought processes? Right? And choose the thoughts that help you respond and rise. I mean, it's incredibly important to know which one you're feeding so you can actually grow. Because if you think that you're in limbo and you're not feeding one or the other, you actually are. And some will say, well, maybe I'm feeding both. Well, that may be true, but oftentimes we feed one more than the other. And typically, when it comes to failure, it's negative. So have that mind shift change to where you feed more positive thoughts than you do negative thoughts. And you'll have a much, much better outcome and goals towards reaching those successes. So do me a favor there, High Speed. If this message resonated with you, do three things for them. Subscribe to the 4M Club, right? Share this with someone who's struggling with failure. I mean, you got to know someone. Reach out if you want help from me on learning how to respond the right way when it comes to failure and mindset. You can work with me with the products that I have through contacting America's Failure Command, right? Now, look, if you can visit my website at georgeamilton.com, that's georgeamilton.com. You can also go and look at some of the products I have at americasfailurecommand.com. I say again, americasfailurecommand.com. And if you want to reach out to me personally, reach out to me at americasfailurecommand@gmail. I say again, americasfailurecommand@gmail. And look. Go out, and if you really want to dive deeper on this, and if you're the intellectual type, check out my books. Failure is not the problem; it's the beginning of your success. Workbook and a journal with that. You can also, if you're one of those high speed want to be, or perhaps a leader running a team or leading people, or maybe even leading self. Failure is not the problem; it's your leadership. And a couple of kid books. The first one is Georgie a Failure? Right? Conversation between the father and the son. The next children's book I wrote was Conversation between the mother and her daughter, Failure Grace and Her Failure-tastic Experience. So, guys, before we get out of here, as your coach, remember this. I'm here to help you do everything that you want to do, learn how you can become successful by using your failures so you can respond and rise. So, remember, again, success comes and goes. Failure stays. I train people to respond. I'll see you next Monday. Lottie, Dottie, and everybody, you guys take care. It's fantastic out. Cool. Take care.